Hello, fellow Westover clients. I say fellow because I invest right along with the rest of you. I'm coming to you today to discuss three matters that I think will be of interest to you. The first is to talk a little bit in depth about the Russia-Ukraine situation and how we see that potentially playing out, as well as to give you an update on a very cogent report written this morning about that subject by Greg Valliere. Mr. Valliere has been a featured speaker of Westovers in years past. He's the U.S. policy strategist for AGF Investments. The second is to tie that with a reminder of our investment philosophy, what we think works best for clients in times good and in times bad. And then the third is to give you a little heads up that we are holding our annual economic summit after losing 2 years due to COVID this coming April, on the 19th of April at the Wilmington Country Club. You will get a formal announcement soon enough. And as coincidence would have it, the speaker this year is also the author and the writer of today's informative report about Russia and the Ukraine, to wit, the esteemed Greg Valliere. So we receive his comments on a daily basis. We think he's very insightful. He doesn't really have a spin from a political bent that's either left or right. He calls it like he sees it. We like that kind of objectivity. And this morning, he had the following comments about the war. The subject matter was Russia's inept military. That's the biggest surprise of the war, he writes. The shocker has been the lumbering Russian military, poorly led, out of key supplies, and facing a morale crisis among soldiers who have little enthusiasm for a war against civilians. He points out that he has turned his war against the Ukrainian army to a slaughter of innocent civilians, obviously committing war crimes in the doing. As we all know, the world as a whole has risen up and objected to his incursion into a fellow country with sanctions that are destroying the Russian economy. Just today, earlier today, President Biden got ahead of the U.S. legislative body who had passed or was about to pass a bill banning all imports of oil and gas from Russia, and announced that decision himself. He's now reaching out to Syria and to Venezuela and to Iran, not Syria, but to Iran, believe it or not, and to Venezuela, believe it or not, seeking supplies of energy from them, all the while keeping the Keystone Pipeline locked down. Getting back to the military incursion attack on Ukraine, Valliere points out that the military has, in his words, suffered a dramatic fall from grace. Most experts believe that Russia casualties have topped 5,000 in less than 2 weeks, at least half of them being fatalities. There are reports that some Russian troops have crossed the border with meals ready to eat. They're called MREs, which expired 20 years ago. Western officials have reported that some soldiers have surrendered and sabotaged their own vehicles during the fighting. This is not to say that Ukraine will not be ravaged and that Ukraine will not be overcome. It will. The sheer force of the numbers of the Russian military assure that. But he will become a pariah the world has never seen, along the likes of Hitler, from the past. And personally, speaking personally, with no pretension to expertise in this area, I see a sad end if I am Vladimir Putin. I see a country that, his country, that's devastated, that has an economy that he has destroyed. I see oligarchs whose yachts are daily confiscated from the ports in the countries of Germany and France. The oligarchs will turn on him in time. And then should the military turn on him, he will lose his power, and who knows, he may even lose his life. But that's just my view, and if that happens, it's a long time from now. But the point is, the sanctions will continue. They won't end when Ukraine is overcome. They will continue, and that will continue to depress his country and destroy it. So in any event, that's what Valier had to say with respect to the Russian incursion as of today. He cites the New York Times article. So for those of you who get the New York Times as I do, I would encourage you to read it. He says it's a very insightful story. I'll leave you with his last paragraph. He says, much of the money to upgrade the military was, quote, he's quoting a Russian military expert here, was, quote, stolen and spent on mega yachts in Cyprus. But as a military advisor, you cannot report that to the president. So they reported lies to him instead. Potemkin military. Truer words were never spoken. So what does that mean for us as your investment advisor? And what does it mean for you who hold the assets that you have entrusted us to invest? Well, what it means is if you ever needed a demonstration of patience and the importance of diversity, this is it. We've had 3 straight years, 19, 20, and 21, where the equity markets were up 20+%. That's extraordinary in and of itself. But just as in golf, you can't break par by shooting at 64, 63, 64 consistently. You have to have the ball turn out of the hole from time to time. We're certainly going to have that. We've had it so far this year, and I think we'll continue to have a rocky year the rest of the year. It doesn't mean I think it will continue to go down as precipitously as we've seen in the last 6 weeks or so, but I don't think we're necessarily going to have a return to the halcyon days of 20% returns on the equity markets. That said, the beauty of the Westover philosophy that I've endorsed from the beginning, that Chip executes and Matt supports, is that if you have a diversified portfolio of equities, bonds, cash, and gold, gold is our best performer. It's an insurance hedge. We're likely to increase that for you. That's presently at about 2% in everybody's portfolio. You should do fine. You should be able to weather those storms. If your portfolio is diversified amongst sectors and size and so on and style, you should be fine. And that's what we will continue to do. There's a famous saying, I think it's, I'm not sure who it's attributed to, but and it's a little harsh, so I will apologize in advance of saying it, but to the effect that you should buy equities when there's blood on the street. So you could say that there's blood on the street right now. The NASDAQ is in a bear market. It's down 20% plus from its high. Both the other equity market indexes, Dow and S&P, are both down plus 10%, minus 10%. So they're in correction territory. So this is the time when we look very carefully at what we might be able to buy to add to your portfolio so that when the times are good, and they will be in the future, we will have some nice runs to the positive side for you. So steady as she goes. We've received no calls, not a one, from a client concerned about our approach to how we invest in this kind of a market. The best advice we can give you, should you be excessively concerned, is to call us with respect to your asset allocation. We can always modify that if that's what you want us to do. We do not recommend it. We didn't recommend increasing your equity allocation when markets were good in the last couple of years, and we don't recommend decreasing it now when markets are bad. Steady as she goes is the way to get that ship to a safe harbor. So that's our view on point number 2, what's going on with respect to the investment horizon at Westover, given the geopolitics that we have now. The real issue, I think, for the long run, the rest of this year, recognizing that Ukraine will probably be yesterday's news in a month or two, but that will still leave us 6 months or more of the year, is what is the Fed going to do with interest rates? I don't think there's going to be a surprise there. Chairman Powell has said he's going to recommend the gradual increase of those interest rates. He projected that that will happen in March when he makes his recommendation that the rates go up 25 basis points. Equities don't like that, but bonds like it less, dislike it more, I guess I should say. If you have a rising rate environment, you still have equities that can do well in that kind of an environment. You've got financials, you've got energy, you've got materials, you've got industrial. So all those sectors will do well in a rising rate environment. And in addition to those sectors, you've got companies who, if they have pricing power, think of Apple, can afford to pass on their increased costs during a rising rate environment. And of course, we've seen inflation at 40-year highs, but the economy is still very strong. We've got a strong jobs number. People are coming back out of the COVID hunker down more strongly than ever. And as long as this economy stays strong, we should be able to get through the bottlenecks and the rest of the issues that confront us. Remember, there's never a time, there's never a day when there's not something going on that's a challenge. It's just the way life is, right? And so it's not that you give up, you just work through them. You just address a challenge, knock it down, and move on to the next. And that's what we're going to do for you with respect to your investments. So thank you very much for your confidence. We work every day to earn it and to continue to earn it. The last comment or subject matter of this little video, you can tell it's off the cuff, I hope. That's the way I like to talk, is again to simply remind you that Greg Valliere will be our esteemed summit speaker on April 19th at the Wilmington Country Club. I suspect we will have a standing room only crowd simply because of the pent-up demand for meetings like that post-COVID, 2 years worth of COVID. So please be on the lookout for your invitation. Please get it back to us. And in the interim, we look very much forward to seeing you, talking with you. We're doing that now regularly with many clients. We had 2 client meetings this morning. Today is March 8th, 2022. So with that, I'm going to leave you and say, I hope we see you soon. And if we don't see you soon, for sure, let's connect on April 19th. Take care.